Hello, my name is Ben Chase, and I'm just starting up the recording for my environmental science presentation. And we're going to start right now. Alrighty, so we're going to start from the beginning here. Alright, so I chose to do my topic on the fishing industry and the culture that goes along with it, as long as the effects on the ocean quality. Culture or the environment? Is it impossible to find a solution without destroying the other? There's two sides to this conflict: those with economical interest and those with conservatism that want to conserve and protect. But you got to realize both of these are necessary to keep two good things going on, keep the culture alive. To understand, you got to learn a little bit about the history of the fishing industry in Cape Cod and New England. Everyone knows Cape Cod got its name from codfish, but did you know that Bartholomew Gosnold in 1602 came up with the name because of the abundance of codfish that he found in his adventure exploring? He was an explorer, that's why. Alongside crops, tobacco, codfish was one of the first major exports. It's very massive, like that big buyers all throughout Europe buying codfish and other seafood. Codfish helped build New England. It's just a fact. Going into the 19th century, the fishing industry was expanding. Many people went to the seas trying to make a living in this free and very the lifestyle was different from what a lot of people back then lived. They wanted this type of lifestyle. Everyone flocked to the seas. Big ports emerged because there's so many boats going out, need a spot to let them sit. Places like New Bedford and Gloucester and Boston. Those were big ports that were very important. They're very important now, but they were especially important back then. And what I learned that I found was very interesting, that the seas got a break during World War II. A lot of the people who were out at sea fishing actually had to fight in the war. So there was a lot less fishing going on then. But sadly, this break did not last long. After World War II, new inventions came into light, such as like refrigeration on ships and dragnets, which allowed fishermen to catch and hold a lot more fish while going out on these trips. And as of 2022, it's unfortunate to see that the codfish caught per year has declined around 90% over the years, and it caused very important fish for Cape Cod, so it's sad to see. And what's really important is the culture of fishing on Cape Cod. It's unique. I was born and spent the years of my life in Gloucester, so I was able to see a different port and experience the culture there as well as Cape Cod. So I have appreciation the culture behind fishing. Myself, I haven't really gotten too involved into it, but I work in a lot of restaurants and local harbors go hand in hand. They're very deeply connected. But my father and my brother, it is their livelihood to fish and study the ocean. My dad's a marine biologist and has seen ports all over the world. But Cape Cod brought him back. Couldn't get over Cape Cod. That's him right there with the two-striped bass. My brother's been working on party boats and charters for years. Overall, I've just met a lot of people who really appreciate the ocean, and it's very important for them. Why is fishing important why is it important economically? Fishing, shell fishing, and coastal tourism combined in 2018 for over $1 billion. That's a large chunk of the economy of Cape Cod. Like, Cape Cod's not massive. I think this really ties into when we did the forum posts about the towns we live in and the average income. And it just, a lot of these towns, these incomes are based off of tourism and fishing. It's not everybody, but it's a good amount. And going back to what I said earlier, the fishing industry and culture in town is very linked to local restaurants, either by people in the harbor selling them fresh fish or by increasing tourism, such as party boats and whale watching events. I worked at Brack's Landing. This is Sacotucket Harbor right here, this image background. And the restaurant is a small building to the right before the trees. And I'll tell you how many times at 4 p.m. we're looking to switch over to the night shift and me to get out of there. When there would be like 40 people from a whale watch or a party boat come up and come to eat. They just they're very closely connected. They work off each other. And the thing is, all good things have negative effects, such as the fishing culture is negative effect is overfishing and pollution. Overfishing can negatively affect many parts of the wildlife and ecosystems. Eelgrass is very important for the ecosystem in Cape Cod, but it's been declining in recent years, mostly due to the excessive dredging for shellfish, which has damaged the eelgrass. However, construction and pollution are also big factors in this. What also affects negatively fish species, especially shellfish, is new inventions of, like we went over, dredges and the nets that allow for more catching. Hydraulic pumping for sea clams was outlawed in the bay for years because it led to overfishing. It has been brought back recently to increase the amount of catching. It's not good. It diminishes the species. It doesn't really have any positive effects. I know guys who my family knows guys who make their living catching shellfish. You don't need the hydraulics. In recent years, many fish species have declined, such as codfish, flounder, tautog, sea bass, and stripers. All been affected by overfishing. And that's why regulation and protection is necessary. There's also a lot of pollution coming from the fishing industry, especially boats in the harbors. Water quality of Cape Cod has been declining for many years. And it's fair to say the fishing industry contributes to that. Inshore around the harbors, pollution negatively impacts the beaches and the sediment around the harbors. For example, they're usually really sandy. Like you think of like a beach near a harbor, it's very sandy. Some of them are due to low oxygen and all this nitrous and stuff coming into the water and the sand and the sediment. It's become silty and muddy, like West Dennis Yacht Club and Wellfleet Harbor. It's just over the years it builds up and it takes their effects. But what really does it is boats coming in out of harbors. You look at some harbors, like the water, it'll be looking kind of murky and almost like oily. Because all the boats up in there. It declines the water quality. And that's not good for tourism. It's not good for fishing. Another major thing from fishing and overfishing is littering. How many times you'll walk on the beach, you'll see stuff washed up from sea. It's thrown out, dropped off boats. And a lot of time will be gear from fishing, like line, some nets, bags for storage, lures, just overall tons of fishing gear washed up. And the trash. Like a lot of this stuff, not all of it, don't get me wrong, not all of it, but some of it's from boats. People throwing it off. It's not good. I get mad whenever I see tourists litter on the beach just because it just destroys something that's so precious to us. And we shouldn't do it ourselves. But going back to protection and regulation, two of the most important, imperative factors is protection and regulation. For decades, the Cape Cod Bay and Nantucket Sound have been considered ocean sanctuaries in the state of Massachusetts. This is very helpful, but it's not everything. It doesn't do everything. You need to have regulations for fishing, commercially and recreationally. It's common knowledge that sought after fish have size and quantity limits. Like striped bass, you can only catch one, and the size is 28 inches. That's a big fish, so you got to throw back a lot of fish. But abiding by the rules will allow us to fish and maintain this culture for much longer. I think it's imperative that the ideas of conservatism and regulation are talked about frequently. Because if you want to maintain the culture and maintain the fishing, you got to be responsible. It's a resource. Like, this is where my business mind comes in. Like, economically, like thinking about GDP, like you want to have these resources for the future, so you can't use them all up in the present. I think it's also very interesting to see how like commercial fishing and recreational just varies. A lot of the littering and the pollution comes from commercially, and people blame the recreational fishermen. And I think it's part of the culture that recreational fishing continues to happen. So you got to regulate and protect the local ocean wildlife of Cape Cod so this amazing culture can live on. Thank you. I'm Ben Chasen. Hope you enjoyed my presentation.